So we are recording now. We are officially recording, which means that your words are being recorded for posterity somewhere on the cloud. We have a good chunk of the people that are coming. We've got probably about half the people represented who are actually going to be here. And I'm looking to see if, we've got people from Los Angeles, we've got people from San Diego, we got people from Texas that are joining us that are on there. We got people from, let's see if we got anybody else out of state. I don't see anybody other state, any other states besides, we said Texas. Schulman's, we got you in Texas. But I think that's about it. Now, I did see there was somebody else that has a place in Texas or somewhere else too. Maybe they're not here right now. Somebody, I think, from the church. Anyways, but we've got a lot of people who are coming together here. This is a very special trip. And as I said when I was here, I met some of you here in August, at the end of August, which feels to me like a century ago, because we had the high holidays since then, and which were really big for us. We just started. We have I'm still letting people in. We had this is actually the end of our holiday of Sukkot. So this is our tabernacle. It's the time of being in the Sukkot. This holiday is an interesting one because it is the foundation actually for the holiday of Thanksgiving. The Pilgrims actually modeled Thanksgiving after the holiday Sukkot, and actually the Jewish people celebrate Hanukkah, even though they don't really know this. They celebrate Hanukkah because of Sukkot, because the Maccabees 2,000 years ago decided to celebrate a holiday in the winter to commemorate the fact they couldn't celebrate Sukkot back a few months before, which they told that story. I'm not inventing that story. They were very proud of the fact that they instituted a Sukkot for them, for their rededication. So this is a very important holiday for us too. It kind of marks the end of the season. And of course, it also seems like a year ago, because I came down here, as I was just telling people, I came down here for the pod race. I think people thought I was coming here for the Padre, for John Shaver, and I said, he's not Catholic. But I actually came here, yes, I am a Dodger fan, and like a lot of you Padre fans, we're still in shock that this happened, and it did happen, and it actually doesn't really surprise me that those things happen all the time. But it was an interesting game. I was there with my daughter, and you did a very good job of freezing out Dodger fans. There were not a lot of Dodger fans there, and we were treated with respect most of the time, I have to say, much better than fans would have maybe been treated in LA. So I want to thank the people and I am rooting for you now. You guys deserve it, and I have no issue. He's a Pirate fan. And that's about the closest.
I live with 3 Dodgers though, so
but that's about the closest.
So we're good to go now. So,
but it was a really, I'm very excited for you guys, and so it's been a long couple of hours, but yeah. Anyways, so we're very glad to have everybody together, and we have my good friend Shai with us here today, who happened to be in San Diego. This wasn't like we said, well, we are going to give preference to the San Diego travelers. Shai was here. He actually was already at another church this morning, a group that he's taking from San Diego, down in the Lemon Grove area. And so this is his second church today. So he's already doing a lot. And he's been all over the country in the last few days, speaking to other groups, Jewish and Christian groups that are going to be going to Israel. So we're very lucky to have him with. And so we had this opportunity, and we wanted to make sure everybody in LA and other places got a chance to meet him as well, since we were lucky enough to have him. So that's how it all worked out. That's what's happening. Just so you know, as of today, as of this morning, about 25 of the passengers are coming from the LA area, mostly from our synagogue, and about 18 passengers are coming from San Diego and from this church. And so there are people, by the way, coming from LA who are part of John's old church at Valencia United Methodist. They obviously still love him and want to travel with him and be with him. So there are people, but those are counted towards John's people. even though they're kind of like my people. Some of them are actually like in both places, by the way. I don't want to say who, but some of them get to actually come to both. So we're very excited to have it's almost a 50-50 split. And based on that, then you can figure out that we have space for 2 people. And the reason that we actually wouldn't have, we had, unfortunately, had one couple from the church who couldn't come. And so we have a space for right now for 2
Nancy,
people.
you're included
Oh, thank you.
already. Yeah, so
I know there's one, he's been telling me, he said, my scholars are coming. So they're here, so we
so this is Nancy Meisenhelder. Jennifer, I think, still
I'd
needs.
like to come, so maybe if there's.
so
Yeah.
we'll talk afterwards,
Right.
but so right now, really, the trip is pretty much full. So the bus holds a little over 50. We wanted to make sure the bus wasn't packed with people, and so we wanted everybody to not feel like they were too clustered in. So you would have room for a few more people, but we really don't want to do that. It's not fair to you, for the travelers, to have too many people there. So that's why we're kind of capped at that. Yeah. So we are here today to kind of explain a little bit more some of the details about the trip. We just sent out the email. Hopefully everybody received. We even sent it to you.
Oh, excellent.
So I think we sent it to you a couple days ago, which basically tells people what they need to do now, which is between now and December 6th, you have to pay the rest of the balance, but it's not due until December 6th. And also the payment for Petra for Jordan. And if anybody has a single supplement, that they need to pay that too. It's by December 6th, all the payments that are due by then. It also laid out the cancellation. And we were able, because we have a large group and because we're working with Shai directly, we were able to keep the cancellation down to a very, very low cost for people. So basically, if you cancel after that time, we're really looking at about a $250 penalty. And quite frankly, most of that penalty is due to the costs of credit card charges going back and forth. And that's really what it comes down to. So because we have a large group and because we're even able to plug people into those spots, we made it so that there wouldn't be cancellation fees. And we also know that there's still, I know people still in the back of their minds are still dealing with COVID and concerns about illness. There, as of right now, and we hope it stays that way, there's absolutely no testing required. There's none of that that's required right now to travel to Israel. Not vaccination requirements, nothing along those lines. So we want to tell people that now. It could change, and if it does change, we'll notify you right away as soon as that comes out. But we don't foresee that happening. And again, hopefully people will continue to see that happen, not just in America, but around the world. So one of the things that we're looking at now in the coming weeks, we're going to keep updating you about things that are going on. We definitely are some special projects and additions to the trip that we're working on, but everything you see on the itinerary is happening. The Petra extension, again, is a option. It is not required. You don't have to go to Petra. If you're not going to Petra, it was explained in that email too, that if you're not going to Petra, we're going to, after our final dinner in Israel, we're going to take you from the dinner. Those who are going back to the airport will go back by bus. Everyone else will return back to a hotel in Tel Aviv, and then the next morning we'll depart to Jordan. And that is a not a long journey distance-wise, but there is a border crossing which adds time to the travel that day. So we're very excited about the Jordan option. That was actually something that was requested kind of by John and by the travelers here in San Diego. So we were able to add that, and hopefully, I've been there a couple of times, and some of our travelers actually have been on our trips, have been to Petra with us, and they've been able to do that journey. So it's a great another addition to the trip. But it does require some extra things, like we have to have a Jordanian guide, and there's some other fees and border stuff that we have to do. But as you saw, that trip, the extension is $950 per person. And again, it's not required. You don't have to do it, but if you want to do it, the payments are due by December 6th. And Shai, you've been there several times, right? To Jordan. Yes, correct. So I'm going to introduce Shai now, and we've been friends for about 6 years. I met him first when I led a birthright trip to Israel. And birthright are trips for young people to Israel that from America, other countries get to go on a birthright trip. So Shai was one of the top guides for birthright. And that's a very, very hard group because you've got 18 to 26-year-olds that are going to Israel. Most of them for the first time. Many of them have not been out of the country ever. And many of them are enjoying their freedom of being away from their families. And somehow he was able to, it's one of the hardest things to do. Because not only was he making Israel exciting and giving these young people some great experiences, he had to make sure that they were awake, that they were there, that they were not arrested, all the kinds of things that he also had to do. So it's it's the hardest thing for a tour guide to do. And he was the top really at doing that. The other great thing is a few years ago, he opened up his own company, which also focuses on ecological tourism. So if you have questions about flora and fauna, this is the man. He actually, that's what he loves doing. He's traveled all around the world. So the great thing about Shai is he actually loves to travel. He loves to see the world, and he knows what it's like and appreciates travel and tourism and understands it in another way. I also like to say that Shai is the first group of tour guides that were working in Israel, let's say 40, 50 years ago. They were very much modeled themselves after kind of Moshe Dayan. They were swashbuckling guys that wore those hats and the Indiana Jones hats, and they kind of, they had a kind of a reputation, and they would just travel all the time with groups. The next generation, we had some sophistication to it. Women started becoming tour guides. They started, becoming a little bit more tourist oriented and trying to think about what the travel experience would like. I like to think that Shai is like the tour guide of the future. He's like 3.0 tour guide, and he takes all the best from the previous generations and really is just a wonderful human being. He also is a recent parent. When I first met him, he was just having twins. So do we have any parents of twins right now? Nobody here? Maybe virtually we have some twin. So this man is also the parent of twin girls now that are like 5 or almost 6, right? 6.
Wow.
They are. So he also is a man who's committed to his family, and he's just a wonderful guy. So Shai, I introduce you to everybody here and everybody at who's wherever you are. Here's Shai.
So these virtual things are so interesting.
Yeah.
Shai, nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you all. And I'm happy to be here. What we're coming to do is something that's very, very unique. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys how unique this group is, but maybe it's worth it just to mention it one more time. There aren't going to be too many buses that end up driving into Israel or flying into Israel that have both a pastor and a rabbi to begin with. Aren't going to be too many buses that do both Israel and Jordan. And there's definitely the mix of having all those 4 elements together. That's unique. That's one of a kind type of thing. I don't think many buses are going to be doing this in the next year. I think you get kind of the best of both worlds. From my experience working, and I've been working with Christians for a very long time, working with Jews for a very long time, there's something of fascination in Christianity about the origins of Judaism, where this whole thing comes from, what was going on there 2,000 years ago, what is first century Judaism, how different is it from today's Judaism, and what does it mean? And for Jews, the same. Jews really want to see how Judaism developed, why are we doing the things that we're doing, and what is it that we're doing. And this combo gives you the best stepping platform into this mix. So the focus of the trip is unique. What we're trying to do is build a trip that would focus on the most significant Jewish sites and would have the most significant Christian sites at the same time. And we'll have this a very interesting combo as we go through with this. So we'll get different perspectives and different insights. So I think you know the itinerary. I think there's a reason for which you signed up. I don't think you need me to go through it very much, but I would say I'm very excited about this. We really tried to put all the highlights that we could possibly think of into it, but not just the must-see sites. Also, kind of some of the off the beaten path, some things the Jewish groups don't ever get to do. As an example, Jewish groups don't go to Bethlehem. It's not a thing. And here we're going to take a bus that is a mixed bus to Bethlehem. It's very unique. Doesn't really happen so much. A lot of Christian groups will not go into the majority of the smallest Jewish sites, or to Tzfat, for example. Tzfat, which is the center of mysticism, or Kabbalah is something that most Christian groups are going to choose to opt out of. They're not going to do it. And then we have this. So it's a very interesting mix. I don't need to sell you on to this. You already sold. But it's really cool. So I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy to participate, and I'll be guiding as much as these guys allow me once we're there. But my team is going to be putting together everything that has to do with your logistics, the hotels, meals, site visits, meetings, encounters. Even the Jordan portion is something that we're running. It's something that we do on a regular basis, and happy to be able to provide you with this opportunity. All right. I'm happy to answer questions, but that's really all I have to say at this particular point in time. I'm sorry.
No, I want to share some of what we've done over the years to just help you understand why we're doing what we're doing. So one of the things that we've done, I think I mentioned this actually, and since I can share the screen here, I'm going to put this up here. So over the years, and we actually have some people who, the Stolmans have been with us before on trips. So over the years, this was one of our last trips we took. We actually get surveys, and you're going to fill out a survey at the end. And what we've done over the years is kind of put together, with a dozen trips that we've done, put together, what feedback people have liked about the hotels, about the sites that we go to, which ones people have gotten a lot out of. And if one person says I didn't like a site, doesn't necessarily take it away. But if we see multiple people say, I really didn't find this site to be that interesting. So this is all from feedback over the years. And so we've really put together a trip that, that takes that into consideration. Also wanted to show you one of the things that you'll also be able to see in, every day. One of the things that we like to, that I like to show people is that every day, and the previous travelers know that we do this. This is, so every day you're going to get a little itinerary of what we're going to see. And you will get to see, I don't know why it's not, you'll get to see some of the site, we'll cover some of the sites that we're going to see. I don't know why it's not scrolling, but anyways, you can see that there'll be there'll be kind of a chance to, I don't know why it's not going, why it's not scrolling. Oh, you know what? Because I'm scrolling the wrong one. Okay, so here. Yeah, so here, I had two open. So, look, so this is one that we do when we go up to the Golan, which explains the Golan Heights, right? And then, here, for example, the same day, we're also in Tiberias. We're at the Sea of Tiberias, which has a lot of importance for early, not just Judaism, but obviously Christianity, because it's where Herod, Herod was one of Herod the Great's sons. Herod Antipas was from there. So this is a city that, the Tiberias and the Sea of Galilee is obviously very important. So this is just one part of the Galilee. But, we also try to give people both a historical understanding of it, but, some spiritual understanding of it too. And one of the nice things about the Sea of Galilee, you may hear us say this later on, there are two seas in Israel. There's a saying, there's the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The Sea of Galilee is full of life, but the Dead Sea has none. How is this? Since they're both fed by the same source, the River Jordan. The Sea of Galilee receives water at one end and gives out water at the other. The Dead Sea only receives water, but does not give. If you only receive but do not give, you do not live. And so the Dead Sea teaches us a lesson. There's no place on the other end of the Dead Sea for the Jordan to come out. It's just where it just receives it. And there's no life there. So it's a lesson of the two seas of Israel that are connected by the Jordan. So every day we see things that not only maybe impress us from the standpoint of the history, and impress us by, in some cases, as Shai will tell us, through the impressions that we get from it, through the ecology of it and the life of it, but also in the spirituality and in the lessons from it as well. So these are, all things that you'll see on our trip, and we're going to give everybody these guides every day. You'll also get them printed out. So we're going to give them to you electronically so you can look at them on your computer, your phone, your iPad, but we're also going to give them to you at the printout. So you'll have a kind of a little souvenir of the trip. So we wanted to take some questions. I don't know if anybody wants to start. We had a couple of questions people asked just now. You can see about whether the balance can be made in 2 payments. It can be. But if you have any questions about, how to make the payments, we try to make it easy. You can do it online or by your phone even, but you can also do it by mail. One issue or question that people had, technically, the Jewish Life Foundation, which is where you're making the checks out to, the payments, the credit card payments, is a nonprofit. So that is all I can say about that, is it's a nonprofit. I'm not a tax advisor, and I'm not representing the IRS, so I can't tell you anything what the consequences of that are, but that is the fact. So that is why you're seeing the Jewish Life Foundation as the charge. Any questions virtually, in person? Anybody? Yes.
Yes, how about credit cards? What will they accept there? And what about cash?
It's a great question.
Do you get euros or what's the?
No. So the shekel is the currency of Israel. It's a very stable currency. It's about 3.5 shekels to the dollar right now. Unlike the pound and the euro, which have been fluctuating a lot, it hasn't been fluctuating, right? So you don't have to worry about currency, changing currency. I recommend not getting shekels before you go. I recommend you don't need a lot of cash there. You don't need a lot of shekels. Almost every gift shop, every place takes credit cards. Normally they take Visa, MasterCard. Not as many places take American Express, but all the hotels do. I don't recommend taking out too much cash, but if you do, I do recommend doing an ATM, and we will show you. It's best to go to a bank ATM, not a little hotel ATM or an ATM in a store. Just like in America, you go to a bank ATM, there's a fee, but it's usually minimal. If you use a credit card for your charges there, for food or for gifts, and it doesn't have a international fee, that's even better. But it's not very expensive. Most of the stuff that you're probably gonna get are gifts. I definitely don't recommend taking out cash to do that. I recommend using a credit card, especially one if you can get one without a fee, without the international fee. So a lot of cards now don't have fees. That's one of the things that they advertise.
One of the, just from going to Nicaragua, one of the good things about the credit card too is if you just check with your credit card company, is they often will give you the best exchange rate too. So somehow they translate it. So usually I'll come back with a bit of a plus from Nicaragua and some other countries. So
let me just tell you one other thing. So this is one of the larger groups we've had, and I don't mind telling you this, and I don't mind doing this. So sometimes people worry, and I definitely have traveled there and I've traveled other places many times, overseas. You don't want to get caught with a currency where you can't use it anywhere else, right? Fortunately now euros, you can use them in different countries in Europe and it's not as bad. As I mentioned to you, I think some of you were with me last time. I went to Israel back in July and I went to Croatia on that trip. Croatia still has its own currency. They're not part of the European Union yet, at least with the euro. So you don't want to get stuck with Croatian currency. It's the same thing in there's other countries. I'm not picking on Croatia. There's other countries where you don't want to get stuck with a currency. Technically speaking, the British pounds you can't use many places, but anyways, if anybody gets stuck with shekels and you don't want to, because you don't want to change them back, I will buy your shekels from you at the end. I go to Israel frequently enough that if anyone's worried about getting stuck with shekels, try not to take out more than you'd think you would spend in a week or so. If you just were, a lot of us don't use cash anymore. So it's not even you don't even have to think about it. But if you get stuck with them, I will buy them from you. Don't worry about it. You won't get stuck with shekels. So I will take any of the shekels that you have off of your hands. And it is not, it's not something you should ever have to worry about. You can get shekels from Wells Fargo or Bank of America. You can go in there and buy your shekels, but you won't be saving, I don't think, any money off of an ATM in Israel if you go to the right kind of bank ATM. And I definitely don't recommend getting more than a couple $100s at a time. I really don't. So that's my experience.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah. Well,
So we went on the trip quite a few years ago, and I felt when we were in Jordan that it was such a poor country. Some of the kids were coming up and begging. Do you think it's wise to bring like some cash to give to them or not? We didn't give them anything at the time because we didn't have anything, but I don't know.
it's a good, interesting question. So Glory was on one of our trips where we did go to Jordan, where we went to Petra. When we went to Petra on that trip, we were only there for the day. We did not stay overnight in Jordan. So this is an interesting question. I'll ask Shai what your take is, because you've taken groups to Jordan a lot. So I'm going to defer to him, because when we went to Jordan, I told people not to get out any Jordanian currency, just to use their credit cards. And I mean, Gloria, aside from wanting to give people money as charity, did you find that you needed Jordanian money?
We didn't get any Jordanian money, and I didn't bring any cash with me. And I felt terrible because those kids, you remember the group of kids, the little ones that were just surrounding us.
If I could speak to that, Gloria, just what I would say, like when, I've done a lot of trips to Nicaragua, taking groups, and maybe what Rabbi and I will do is we'll try and find some, both Jewish and Christian Methodist humanitarian places where I know that it's so tough, but it's been places where I've gone where you give to one, and all of a sudden you have about 100 more around you, and it ends up, you never know if it's actually going to those kids too. So if it helps at all, maybe Mark and we can find some humanitarian relief places that we can know that we're helping kids down there, but that way you don't have to feel the guilt, or also have 100 or 200 kids around us at that point. So
that's a great point.
Can I add something to this?
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
The issue with children begging is the fact that we never know if the child is begging because they need it or because their parents are sending them there. And many times I'm sorry, this come off very sarcastic, but when we give to those children, what we really are doing a lot of times is strengthening the situation in which the children are not being sent to school, but instead of sending to be begged on the streets.
Right.
I realize how sarcastic this sounds, and how cynical this sounds. But
That's what I was thinking when I was asking, is because it's encouraging them to beg more.
Absolutely, it encourages them, and you'll see this in Israel sometimes too. I don't want to be overly specific, but there's certain population groups in Israel, you'll find it also that this is happening, and the fact that they receive leads to them asking for more. And so I don't know if it's the right thing or the wrong thing. It's not my place to judge. I don't judge in this respect, and I will respect you if you choose to bring, I don't know, singles and hand out singles. That's perfectly your choice, but I would actually advise against it. The one thing, as Pastor John was saying, is it leads to massing around it, which is problematic. You give to one, you have 30, 40 now trying to come, you ultimately lost. And the second thing is, I'm not sure this really ends up providing for those children as much as we would like to think. Going to humanitarian centers and giving to a place that actually caters for children who lack food is a much better way to approach this, in my personal opinion. And we can try and work this into the schedule. Right?
Thank you.
Any other questions about money or exchange? Because that's probably the biggest question that people have. But I promise you that when we're in Israel, we'll be able to go to a bank ATMs, or we'll point them out, because those have the least amount of fees, and they're, everything is very it's much simpler, and it's not there's never a question whether you're going to get another fee or another fee. So I definitely recommend doing that. Yeah.
Can you get away with just using a credit card, or will you need to have maybe a small amount of money.
So there's two things for which you'll probably need some cash.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
When you're shopping in the old city of Jerusalem, for instance, it is not always advised to use a credit card in every single place. There have been cases in the past that your credit card is charged twice, or a zero to added without you noticing. Not every place is advised to use your credit card. It's one. I'm talking about trinkets here. I'm not talking about big purchases. Big purchases can be or should be done in places that we're trusting. The second thing is when it comes to tipping, if you're tipping hotel staff, or you're choosing to tip your driver at the end of the trip, we're going to provide some sort of recommendation as to how much is considered acceptable or recommended in the industry, then that is cash. It's not something that we do with credit cards. Once we do it with credit cards, I'm going to be very specific here. It needs to go through our system. We need to pay the taxes for it. Whereas if we give the driver in cash, then he chooses to do with it whatever he wants. None of my business. When it goes through my system, I'm going to have to pay taxes for it. So not everything that you will choose to give them will actually end up with him. So those are two situations in which you probably will need cash. In general, I would say if you want to buy an ice cream, if you want to buy a Coke, right? In the States, everywhere will take your credit cards and everybody will be happy with it. It's built up for that. In Israel, people actually still use cash. So it's not a bad idea to have some cash.
But they take dollars.
Yes, and you can, yes, they will take
Most
dollars
places,
and,
but we'll figure it out.
but for tips they do. And if you're worried about it, as I said, you can give me tips in dollars and I'll give you back shekels or whatever, but the drivers will take tips in dollars.
Absolutely.
So that's not an issue. I mean, it's like, so when people say, do I have to bring cash? Technically speaking, if you get into a situation where you say, I really don't want to take out cash, please talk to me about it. Because you can actually do this cashless. I will tell you, it is possible to do that. I think that's probably going to be the future. And what Shai is really, again, talking about, if you can envision it, is when you're in the old city, you're going to basically like through a bazaar. Those places, it's just not like they're not like stores. I mean, they're little stalls. And so yes, for those, it's probably better to have cash. And it's, some people enjoy doing that, but you don't have to buy stuff from there either. You can
No, if you're buying stuff from there, then you need to take into consideration that the price you told is not the real price. And they're expecting you to haggle.
Yeah, if you like doing that, some people like that. I don't like that. Some people like haggling and they think it's fun. It's like they're in the Aladdin or something like that. If you want to do that, you can, but I mean, it's also, you never know what you're getting. I mean, you can do it. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it, but that's probably the only place you need to have cash. And if you want to have that experience, you can do that. And a lot of those places, by the way, will take dollars. But it's up to you. Yeah.
At the bank ATM, do you have a choice of getting shekels
Or dollars? Yeah.
Okay.
But I definitely recommend if you're going to think about taking dollars out, then bring the dollars. Because then you're not going to pay any fee. But you don't I mean, I'm just telling you, if you took $200 cash, most people in dollars, that's all they would need. I'm just telling you from our experience.
But I'm going to jump in and say only specific ATMs will actually give you dollars. All ATMs by default are going to give you Israeli shekels, which is the currency used in the country. Whereas if you want dollars, as Rabbi Mark said, you should probably bring dollars with you. It's easy.
And I will tell you that as it's changing, as the shekel has become very strong currency, people aren't as, it used to be when you went to Israel, people would like having their dollars. That was an incentive for them in the tourist business. Cab drivers, stores would like taking dollars because it was a great way of kind of saving money. Israel shekel is, I'm telling you, I looked at it over the last 6 months. It's performed much better than any currency in Europe. It's 354, I think I saw last, which
Almost
was
355 at the moment.
which is what it was when I was there in I think it was, it's basically what it was in July. And I can tell you the pound and the dollar are almost even right now. So it's crazy. Yeah.
What about
Hey, Mark,
at restaurants?
Oh, tipping at restaurants.
So tipping in restaurants, in general in Israel, we usually work with a 10% tipping. That can be done by card. It doesn't have to be done by cash. But unlike the States in which you give your card, it's charged, you get the stub that then you write on it whatever you want to leave right? Which makes it very comfortable, because you don't have to tell them beforehand. You can just leave after that. In Israel, if you didn't tell them when you give them your card, it's impossible. Once they return your card, it's a done deal.
It's
You
10%.
can't add. Normally in restaurants, it would be 10%. It's worth it to check if the restaurant has already included your tip, right? And take into consideration that your breakfasts and dinners are already provided. So what you're really looking at is lunches, and some of the lunches are also provided. Not all your meals you need to deal with. Some of them you will.
Some dinner. Some
Yeah.
dinners you have to pick.
I think Kathy has a question. up here.
Yes.
Oh. Thanks, John. Hi, guys. Anything we should know about the weather, packing, and any special events or any place we go that we need something particular to wear?
Oh, Shai.
We're gonna send the packing list that is designated for a winter season. You're technically flying in the winter season in Israel. It's the end of winter, but it still falls under the winter season. But take into consideration the San Diego weather is almost the same as Israel's weather. Almost, it's not the same, right? The difference is, and sometimes you get rain when we don't. Obviously, it needs to be taken into consideration, but it's almost the same temperature-wise, wind-wise, amount of rain, and so on. So it's very, very similar. So if you're living in LA, it's a little bit different, but if you live in San Diego, it's definitely very, very similar. You'll have a packing list. It's easier to approach this way. The other thing is, plan to have something warm for the evening. It gets cooler in the nighttime in Jerusalem. And in general, when visiting religious sites, be it Jewish sites, Christian sites, Muslim sites, there's a requirement to have modest clothing. Modest clothing in the winter season is less of an issue because everybody's walking around with layers. But generally speaking, covered shoulders, covered knees, covered chest is the basic requirement in religious sites. So just plan towards it, right? Comfortable shoes, needless to say, yeah. Walking around, if you're comfortable in heels, great. It's not what I mean though, right? Not for men, not for women. Neither should be walking around in heels in the old city of Jerusalem. It just leads to a broken ankle. So yeah, comfortable walking shoes, all right?
Shai, Rabbi, I have a question for Shai. I actually have two questions. I know that my family and I think one other family, we're going to be in Tel Aviv prior to you folks arriving. How, so I can save myself a cab fare to Jerusalem. How can I hook up with the bus? How can my family hook up with the bus before you head up the highway?
So the easiest thing to do is for both sides of this group to put together some sort of chart that we can moderate and we can actually observe what's going on. We would need to know
We're
who's
collecting.
on which flights and who's on a separate flight.
We're collecting everybody's flight information in the next month. So we'll have all your flight information, your arrival information. Shai will have it, and we'll all be taken care of.
So that's one. And the second thing is if you are arriving earlier or staying in later, and you want assistance with finding a hotel or making sure that you're in the same hotel as the group is when you arrive earlier, just as a theory, if you arrive in Jerusalem 2 days prior to the group, then we can assist you in getting the group rate for your rooms. If something you're interested in, just let us know. We would need to know ahead of time. But to answer your specific question, there are two ways to approach this. You either take a train from Tel Aviv to the airport, and you meet up with the group as it lands.
Okay.
Just making sure that you communicate with us so that we make sure to wait for you.
Okay.
Or alternatively, you can do the same, but just go to Jerusalem. There's a fast train that goes from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and you can check out at your hotel, spend a few hours wandering around if that's what you wanted, and then go check into the hotel that we have in Jerusalem, and then arrive there and wait for us there instead.
Okay. Next question is, are there any plans to go into Jaffa for dinner or anything? Some great restaurants there. I didn't know if there was, I hadn't checked the itinerary too closely.
We are for the day that we are in the night that we're in Israel, the last night, for those that are not going to Jordan, we are having dinner I think we're having dinner at Maganda.
Yeah,
Are we?
yeah, I think so.
So we're actually only in, John, we're only in Tel Aviv one night
Okay.
for dinner. I don't know. Do you know what time when we get back from
Well, technically, we have 2 evenings in Tel Aviv. We have one night in Tel Aviv for everybody. Sorry for jumping in like that. And then the
last night.
second evening is the evening in which some will be departing back to the States, while the rest go back to the hotel in Tel Aviv, and the following morning leave to Petra. So there's always an option, I would say, there's always an option. While dinners might be provided in the hotel, thank you. There's always an option to just go out and have your own dinner. Sometimes it's worth it. I mean, I can tell you from my perspective as somebody who's putting these things together, the difference in cost of a room with dinner or without dinner is around $10 a lot of times. What we're paying for your dinner is ridiculous. It's included almost in the price of the room in many, many cases. But if you feel that you're missing out and you need to go out and experience a different dinner, then, you know, take into consideration that you spend $10 on dinner at the hotel. It's not a big deal. And then you go out and you have a nice dinner outside.
Yeah, I didn't know dinner was included. I thought just breakfasts were.
Some dinners are.
Some dinners.
Oh, okay,
not
okay.
every dinner
The
is included.
the final dinner is included, right? So the dinner in Magad, or the final dinner in Tel Aviv before we go to Petra, I should say. And the final dinner for many travelers is included. That is,
Gotcha.
and that's not a $10 dinner.
It's not.
Not many, but there are some dinners are included. That's one of the.
I'm gonna open my computer. I'll get onto this in a
All
second.
right, but anyways, that dinner is a like a Yemenite style restaurant, and it's very good, and it's not that's a dinner we want. Hopefully everyone can be there. Yeah,
Is that Petra extension 1 day? Because your website shows 1, 2, and 3 day
yeah, it's
options.
3 days.
It
No,
is-
it's not an option. It's once you go,
Yeah.
it's 2 nights in addition to the nights. It's 2 other hotel nights in Jordan that are not included in the. If you're just in Israel, you're not getting those 2 other nights in Jordan.
Okay.
So that's why I was saying in previous years, when we've gone to Petra, we haven't stayed overnight in Jordan. We've gone back to Eilat in southern Israel, and then we went one night to Eilat before we went to Petra, and then we went to Petra and then spent another night because it's a whole day in Jordan, but it's a much different trip. It's a little bit more driving. We didn't spend as much time in Jordan, so this is a little different for us in our Jordan experience. But yes, it's 2 nights of hotels inside Jordan, which should be an interesting experience. Yes, yes.
At the last meeting, I thought that you were saying that there were no dinners.
No. There are some dinners included.
Okay.
There are some dinners included,
Okay.
not as many dinners
2
as,
or 3 or
yeah,
5?
I'll give you the total
I'll bring it
amount of
up right
dinners.
Okay.
Shai's bringing it up.
Okay.
But the final night dinner in Tel Aviv
Yeah,
is
is-
included.
is a nice
And that's
dinner.
it's a very nice dinner. So most of the dinners, again, in my experience, and this is one of the things that is a little different, is that we do give people a little bit more freedom to have dinner on their own, mainly because the hotel, eating at the hotel, you're gonna eat hotel for breakfast. There's really not I don't think it's a great thing to eat the dinner at the hotel too. But look, if you're tired, eat dinner at the hotel. But we like to give people some freedom to do that.
And then one other question is
Yeah.
back to when we were talking about tipping. Will you give us recommendations? of-
Absolutely, yeah. We'll give you the
like
tipping,
for
yeah.
the-
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And just along the tipping thing, you mentioned the drivers. So would there be like a time where, okay, we've been on this bus with this driver for 3 days, so all together, we're gonna pitch in. and-
Shai, it's one driver,
It's
right?
gonna be the same driver in Israel through and through, and then you have the same driver in Jordan for the
Okay.
duration of Jordan.
So you don't have to give them a tip every
Okay,
day.
so at the end of those drivers, that's when you'll kind of give us all the high sign. and-
Yeah,
and give us
we
a ball
normally
one?
do at the farewell dinner in Israel.
Okay,
That's when the group has collected if they want it, of course, but it's recommended, and then we give it in a nice gesture to the driver.
okay.
The same thing can be done.
So you'll give us the thing, okay, we recommend you put in this much and.
Yeah, but we'll tell you ahead of time.
Ahead of
If
time,
you want, this is the recommendations.
thank you. Okay.
And how about the people who
Question?
rent rooms in the hotel?
Shai?
Same, we will have a recommendation to
Okay.
you, but technically that would be included. So even the porters, the bellhops, taking your luggage off the bus and loading it onto the bus, it's already included in the cost.
Okay. Okay.
That being said, what the hotel is charging us for that service is not technically a tip. So if we wanted to tip them, we could tip them in addition. Again, it's a matter of how a group wants to approach this. Some groups decide to collect it all in advance. Leadership, in this case, puts it into envelopes, and then we come to a hotel and we just hand an envelope to the hotel staff and we're done with it. In other cases, people are doing this on their own. So it's a matter of how this is, but we'll have a recommendation for this anyways.
But again, the hotel tips and the porterage tips it's not like you have to. You want to give somebody a tip, you can, but you're not going to see these people. I mean, it's not like you're going to have to hand them a tip and they're taking your bags. Your bags, when you leave them, are going to be left out if you want to leave a tip for the hotel staff, some people do that. I mean, you know, it's a personal choice, but you don't have, there's no recommendation, or you have to. And the bags you'll leave out every day when we move, we're not moving every day, we're moving, there's 3 hotels that we're staying at in Israel. Leave your bags out and they'll be taken off the bus.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, you might have answered this, but will we be, Shai, will you be our guide in the West Bank? Bethlehem?
Bethlehem.
Yes.
So I will go with you into Bethlehem, but we'll have a local Palestinian guide in addition.
Okay.
All
That's
right.
what
But that's really the only day. And that's the only day where we're kind of like in the West Bank, and that it's not under only Israeli control. Let's leave it like that. So, I mean, it's really and Bethlehem is very safe. There's no place we're going that's dangerous. Bethlehem is very safe for tourists, for people. It's very safe. But technically speaking, you're in the West Bank when you're in Bethlehem.
So can I just jump in here? I could be wrong, so take my words with a grain of salt. But what I'm looking at when it comes to reservation hotels that we've made are half board, which means including dinners.
Including dinners?
Including dinners. And I don't know how we got this miscommunicated. It's a good miscommunication because you're under the assumption that you're not getting something and all of a sudden it's a good surprise. Not a bad thing, but I can check this again.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of that, Shai, but that's okay. Look, I'm just telling Shai, what I normally do is I don't, mainly because I don't want people to feel like they have to. We've done dinners in the past where we've included a lot of the hotel dinners, and that's where people said, I didn't really want to eat at the hotel all the time. And that's why we stopped doing it. Plus it saves people a little bit of money. It's not as,
we'll check it again.
it's not as much money as again, as you think, because here's the issue. If you paid for the hotel dinner separately, it would be a lot more money. It is. So they charge us a little less by booking it ahead of time with the half board. But in our experiences, we stopped having as many dinners at the hotel because people said, I don't want to eat at the hotel every night. So that was one of the feedback that we've gotten over the years. The first few years we did include it because a lot of groups do it, but we just found that a lot of people didn't like to do it. And we have a lot of people who are independent travelers. We have a lot of people that go on our trips that go to other countries and aren't afraid to go out, and everybody speaks English in Israel. So it's not like you have to worry about going to a restaurant and pointing to something in a menu. The menus are always in English. I mean, 99% of the time the menus are in English, right?
Yeah, you have an Englishman. That's not the issue. It's
So-
easy to get around.
And
it's easy to
Rabbi's
walk around.
Rabbi's a foodie, so he just has.
Foodie, I like to eat. That's different from being a foodie. That means, well, I'm also a vegetarian. Don't ask me because I
You know the good place.
I do, but I do not eat meat. So if somebody says, is that a good burger? I'm not the person to ask.
The food's delicious.
It's delicious. Yes.
What is the voltage of that going?
Shai's
I just happened to holding one in my hand.
Shai's about to tell you. He knows that this is a
Mark?
question you're gonna have.
So
Wait, what's it? Voltage.
what is the voltage? So there's a difference in voltage. Here you're using 110, there we're using 220. Which means for everybody who's bringing their own computers, hair dryers, hair curlers, hair straighteners, a lot to do with hair for some reason, I don't know why. Take into consideration that even if you're just using a regular converter, it's going to fry up your device. It needs to be something that also changes the voltage. The greatest thing is one of these. I don't know how well you can see it over there, right? One of these, which really changes all of the plugs. And basically, it can American, Australian, Israeli, and these are relatively inexpensive. It's worth to have one. It's a great advantage.
Who makes it?
There's a variety of different companies. As I have 2 of them in my bag. There's a variety of different companies that produces this. We're going to send you just so that you know what the Israeli plug looks like. It has the 2 straight pins, basically. It's very different than what you guys are used to. It's worth it to have one of these in advance, especially if you bring your own electronics. It's also worth it to have a splitter. So if I have this one, I connect to a splitter of 3, I can plug in 3 different devices at the same time. They're all going to be safe. If I don't, then I have to do this all in a row, slowly. Phones are less of an issue. A lot of the hotels now, they have a built-in USB port. So you just plug your USB cable into the wall. It's nice. It's a new thing with most hotels, not all of them, but many hotels will have it. On the bus, a lot of times we have USB ports that you can connect your phones. That's less of an issue.
And you don't need a converter for that. And
Exactly.
if you have a little plug, you don't have to worry about converters on it. This is for computers and again, hair dryers and those kind of things.
Hi, our hair dryers in the hotel.
Most hotels will have a hair dryer.
Well.
Most hotels will have a hair dryer. Most hotels will have a, what do you call it?
Iron.
An iron. It doesn't mean that all hotels, it doesn't mean that all rooms, every hotel has its own set of issues, especially after COVID. Plus, I mean, from experience from my wife, people have a tendency to like their hair dryer, which is okay, the way it works for you. If you want to carry it, but if you aren't carrying it, be aware of the voltage difference and things to bring up. I think it will be.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the restaurant issue. Can you get us a list of recommended restaurants for dinners in the areas that we're gonna be in case we do decide to go out?
We can, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a list already in place. We can just send it with the packing list, and it's going to have 2 different levels of restaurants. One is going to be mid-range and the other one is going to be higher. And you can make a decision to do this. And if you want to reserve a spot, you can either do it on your own. Almost 90% of them have their own websites. If you find these sort of difficult, you can just reach out to us and we can help you with it.
Perfect, thank you.
All the dinners are included in Jordan, by the way. Jordan, we're not sending people out. I want to make that real clear. All the meals are included in Jordan. Lunches too, or just dinners and breakfast?
Lunches too.
Yeah, so I think all the meals in Jordan are included. If there aren't any, it's just the lunches, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it's all meals. We'll check, but it's all dinners, 100%. You don't have to go out in Jordan and try to figure out where to go. In Israel, remember, we're only in 3 different cities overnight. And one of those cities that we're overnight is Tel Aviv, and that dinner is 100% included. So we're only talking about a couple of the dinners in Jerusalem and in Tiberias. Those are the only places where you have to, again, maybe have some selection for dinner. And as we said, we'll have a list of restaurants that you can go to. And again, taking into consideration where we'll be for lunches and those kind of things. So you don't have to have the same food every day and every meal.
Bottom line is, after this conversation, we're going to put together an email. It's going to have the packing list. It's going to have the recommended restaurants. And it's going to have the tips. And it's going to have also an answer to this question of meals. Okay, we're going to go back and research this. And we're going to double check everything before we give you a proper answer. And then we'll give you the final answer on all the meals. Okay, just so that you know what's going on.
Is there any site that we're visiting where women are required to wear skirts?
There is no requirement for women to wear skirts. There is one site in Israel in total, which is the Temple Mount. If we end up going on Temple Mount, then they do have their own modesty issues, right? Which is different. But in general, when you're going into a synagogue or you're going into a church, the requirement is to have covered knees. And the covered knees is not because anybody cares about your knees. It's about creating any sort of a length that they are comfortable with. Because people have a tendency to show up with shorts at a church or the synagogue, which is not acceptable for many, and it's uncomfortable for them. So that restriction was placed by the organizations that are responsible for the religious side specifically. None of them is demanding that you would wear a skirt. That being said, sometimes people wear very, very tight leggings, right? Or some sort of pant that is open on the side. And then you find yourself in these gray areas, and it comes down to who's the priest in charge, who's the chairman responsible for the synagogue at that particular moment, and we find ourselves dealing with stuff. If you have any sort of a quandary about this, you're not sure, bring a shawl. Have a nice thin shawl, throw it in a small bag, it doesn't take up too much space. And then if you want to wear a shirt that is not necessarily long sleeve or short sleeve, you want to share a sleeveless shirt, right? You have the shawl, you pull it out, you use it, or
And that'll be in the packing list, but a shawl is very light shawl is all you need. You don't have to cover your hair.
That's what I was just gonna ask about head coverings.
no.
Okay.
Nobody's going to demand that you cover your head.
Okay.
So again, if you have a very light shawl that you have with you in a few of the places that we're gonna go, then we'll We'll be fine. That's it. And like I said, and Shai already told you, during the winter, there's very small likelihood that you're gonna be wearing anything that's inappropriate. That will be a need for have a shawl anyways.
I have a customs question. So I read somewhere, if you have prescription drugs, they should be in their original containers. Is that true?
It's definitely true. That applies to any international travel. Any sort of medication that you're carrying. Let's just
Like vitamins too?
let's have an issue with vitamins usually. But that being said, I mean, you never know who's standing there. So the question is then, what is the spill?
Oh, boy.
Right? What is the spill? Are you bringing in vitamins, or is this potentially an illegal substance? And it's difficult when somebody is annoying that way, dealing with you. It's difficult. All of a sudden it becomes difficult. Most likely it will not be stopped. Most likely nobody will check it. Most likely nothing will happen. But it's better to have it in its original packaging, which means that for that sake, since we're talking about if anybody is taking prescription medication in your carry-on bag, please not in the checked luggage. These things sometimes go missing. If anybody has allergies, which goes back to Benadryl and EpiPens and stuff like that, bring them with you. You won't be able to purchase it in Israel. It's not an over-the-counter drug. It's definitely, you need the doctor's note to get one. It's going to be a lot of a hassle to make this happen. EpiPen specifically, it's a life-threatening situation. If this is something that somebody's dealing with, bees, peanuts, whatever it might be, bring those with you. Don't bring just one EpiPen. Bring two, at least, right? You end up being stung by a bee, use an EpiPen, it's great, everything's great, but then the rest of the trip you have none. So at least two. I always tell people, I know they're expensive. I think they're around $500 here in the States over the counter, but maybe even having more is not a bad idea. And do let us know so we can help you sort this out. But going back to your question about medication, yes, it is very much advised to have it in its original packaging. Most likely nothing will happen, but if it does, you'll be very happy that you have.
But that's, yeah, and as Shai said, that's not just in Israel, that's going to Mexico. They could technically on the way back ask you about your medication. But I will tell
They
you,
will take it.
but I will tell you that it is in Israel, it's not, we've never had an issue, but I don't want it to be an issue for you. So it's never been an issue. We've never had anyone had their medicines questioned, but not even questioned, but we don't want to first. But we've never seen it.
So just the fun thing, just so you know, we're working on getting these set up so that we would be giving them as gifts. It's still a work in process. It's the same exact thing as I showed you, but just this one, again, has all the plugs. But in addition to having all the plugs, it has USB ports at the end,
Wow.
which disconnects and it comes to the regular plug. We're working getting on a few hundred, if not thousands of these that would be used as gifts for travelers. It's not yet there. We're still in the process of ordering them, having them logoed and so on and so on, but something that we're working on. There's a chance that by February, when you show up,
We'll let you know. We'll let you know if we have them ready.
there's a chance. So don't go buying them just now. Wait.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I have
By the way, they're not very expensive, just so you know.
Yeah.
They're like $10. And you had a question, yeah.
I have a question. A friend that was traveling in Israel in 1995 said that she often ran into toilets that were not, she was not used to.
Okay, so your friend who was traveling in Israel in 1995,
Uh-huh.
she's talking about squatting options,
Yeah.
holes in the ground, very uncommon. You find that in other countries. In Jordan, you'll find that more commonly. Other places in the world too. But in Israel, there's only one place that I can think of that you will find it, and that's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Crucifixion, technically. And that is inaccurate today because they have half the stalls with a regular toilet, half the stalls with a sit-down hole in the ground, and that's because of the people that come. Some people are used to this, other people are used to that. When somebody's used to that, ends up meeting a toilet for the first time in life, what they end up doing is squatting on it, sitting down in the air on the toilet and breaks the toilet. And so the church got fed up with it. And so they installed the holes in the ground to accommodate the people. It's an interesting situation. But I will say, you will encounter many situations in which there's no toilet paper or there's no soap. Hand sanitizer and tissues in a small bag are not a bad idea. That's happening very much because think about it. I mean, we have millions of tourists in the country. on a yearly basis. And the places are simply not keeping up with the maintenance of toilets during the day. They just can't keep up. So it happens all the time.
Well, I will say it happens less in Israel than it happens in other places. I will tell you, Shai, Israel is much better at maintaining bathroom facilities than other countries. I'm telling you, I just went from Croatia to Israel and the difference was night and day from Israel, from where Israel is. I'm just telling you.
If I'm wrong, then it's on me.
I know, but I'm just telling you, it's always good to be prepared. And I'm definitely not taking any credit for Jordan, and I'm not taking credit for Israel either. I'm just telling you that as somebody who travels to Europe regularly, it's not even a question that Israel is Israel doing a better job of maintaining sites than, especially, by the way, sites that are maintained by the tourist authority, by the National Park Authority. I think that they're at least as well maintained right now as most American travel sites are, national parks type sites, because I guarantee you, you're not gonna find that kind of maintenance either, unfortunately, in our national sites. Museums and places like that we go to, though, are all beautifully appointed. I mean, those are not, I don't like seeing dirty bathrooms, by the way. I have to say, I'm a stickler on that.
I do remember that we had to pay sometimes to use the restrooms. So keep some small coins, I guess, or something. Is that
And if you need to, there's always, what you can ask us, you can ask there, if you need sometimes they charge a shekel or two for using the bathroom if they're maintaining it privately. But you don't have to, don't take cash just for that, by the way. It's literally $1. It's usually maybe $1 to use it. So you don't have to worry about having cash for that. But yeah, you'll see that occasionally, but it's also less and less common there too. But that is something that, yeah, we don't do in America. Very rarely we see somebody charging for a bathroom maintenance in America.
That same friend that went in 1995 said definitely to visit the bakeries in Israel. She said she'd never seen bakeries like they were there.
There's something to be said for that. The bread and the pita bread and the pastries. Israel has an interesting situation, I think, when it comes to food, which is that it has a great mixture of European and Middle Eastern food. I'm sure Lebanon was like that at a certain point in history too, but unfortunately, it's not it's had hard times, let's put it that way. But I think Israel is also very unique in that it does bring together not just European food, but food from around the world. But yeah, when it comes to bakery, pastries, you could get really great European, Viennese or Parisian style bakeries, but also Middle Eastern style bakeries that are, yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, we always go and go to some of the markets. We're going to be at the markets on this trip too, so you'll have a chance to try that kind of homemade breads. By the way, they're in the hotels as well. So when you have the breakfast in the morning, you'll see a lot of fresh pastries and breads and things like that in the morning too. It's really good.
I haven't had a chance to check the itinerary, but do we have any free time when we're there?
Some, yeah.
Well, I was reading about this Cistercian Matron monastery, the Oasis of Peace. Have you heard about it? And it's where Jews and Palestinians live together, and it's called Nevi Shalom.
Yeah, Nevi Shalom. It's a little bit out of the Jerusalem area. It's roughly 20-25 minutes out of Jerusalem. It's a cool spot. It's a mixed community.
Yeah.
But when it comes to free time is you get a little bit of free time in the old city, you get a little bit of free time in the market. It doesn't count. We're not taking into account the idea of somebody taking up the afternoon and going somewhere. It doesn't mean that you can't. You can. I don't mind it. I mean, leadership would have to take into consideration this one, but I wouldn't mind it for you to take a private journey and going somewhere. Taking into consideration that it would become at the expense of something. So if you're comfortable with that, that's perfectly fine by me.
I just was wondering.
No, it's an interesting thing. We unfortunately on the trips because we're not there for an extra 2 or 3 days. There are some kind of those sites that we wish we could special. But there are special places, but that one, because it's not right in the city, it's a little harder to get to. It requires giving up something else in order to do that. So yeah, there definitely are things that if we have more time or you come back for a repeat trip, that some of those places could be on there.
But when?
Well,
Not if when you come back.
where are the Oaks of Mamre?
It's just a little bit outside of Jerusalem. Okay. You did some research, huh?
Yes, I did.
I like
And part of the research was this, that it said it was the city of mystics, and it had a little story about it. So I'm glad we're going to that in this, and Oasis of Peace and the Oaks of Mamre.
Thank you.
What about if you have a medical problem on the trip?
Okay, so first thing first, we would get it sorted out, right? But the second thing is that the question then becomes, what do you do with it? Insurance, traveler's insurance is something I always recommend, always. Whether you have a pre-existing condition, you don't have a pre-existing condition, you never want to be the one who actually pays for medical treatment in a foreign country. You never know what it ends up with. COVID taught us a lot of different things, but one of the things COVID taught us is that it's unpredictable. If somebody was to get COVID and the US regulations, by the way, Israel regulations will not hold you from doing anything at this point. It's like a common cold from our perspective. But US regulations may require you to wait until you test negative and then a certain time of days before you can return to the US, which means that you'd be paying for hotels, you'd be paying for meals, you'd be paying for the change of a flight. And that is something that if you had the coverage by insurance, they would be paying for it instead of you. So they'll be picking off the tab. And I always recommend to get traveler's insurance. I can't force you to get traveler's insurance, so it will come down to your decision. Ultimately, it's not a bad idea. So, but we have fantastic medical care insurance. To answer your question, somebody has a medical situation, we deal with it. It's been happening too many times in the past that I had to get people to a hospital or to get an ambulance to deal with them, sometimes for nonsense, sometimes because they dehydrated, sometimes because they knew that they had a pre-existing liver issue and they never reported it, and we end up dealing with this in Israel. It happens all the time. We have fantastic medical care. The issue really comes down to the cost. Nobody worries about it when they're there. Everybody wants to get treated. But after you come back and you realize how much you paid, all of a sudden becomes a very big deal. So consider it if it's something that I would say consider it, at least a basic one. Does that answer your question? Any other questions?
On the traveler's insurance, does it cover anything but medical? I mean, anything else?
It depends which coverage you get. Some coverage would cover you for a variety of different things: cancellation of flights, missing a flight, lost luggage, your phone being broken, a variety of different things, right? Others will cover basically just medical and very little
So there
others.
is a choice you can get.
It depends on which agent you're going through.
Credit card.
The agent I work with in respect to flights and travel insurance, they do a variety of different levels of insurance. You can choose your own. There's your credit card company also provides some sort of a traveler's insurance that you can check and see. Just if you're doing traveler's insurance, just read it and understand what it covers and what it doesn't.
Shai,
So that when you get to a situation, you know what you actually covered for. Yes.
EA Plus. The one through Hadassah, the EA Plus plan. You know that one?
I'm not familiar with it, to be honest, but there's so much going out there.
Okay,
It's,
maybe about $179, $189 a year. And they
And
do
they
a
cover
lot
all
of
your
that
international
coverage.
travel?
Huh?
And they cover all your international travel?
Yes.
It's worth it to check it then.
Yeah.
It's worth it to check it. Some carriers I've heard before do between $250 and $500 a year, and they cover all your international travel. If you're saying 179, that's I would say that's low. That's good.
Yeah.
It's worth it to check it, folks.
Mark, this is
Yeah.
Chris Osteen. My wife and I are out of town. So two things. One is, how will we be able to access the recording of this, because we missed the first part due to a senior operating error?
We are going to send out a link. If you got this email, then you should be able to get the link for the email me if you don't, but later today or tomorrow, we're going to post a link to this recording. And
Great.
and
I did it, so it should come to your email.
yeah. So we'll have that sent around, because we do know that there's some people who weren't going to be able to be here. We have some people that are actually traveling right now. So we will post that link right away. And there was one other thing that I wanted to, I think we had one other question, I think. No.
So
Oh,
I just,
yes, yeah. So here's one thing that we post. So we did post the that email contained the information about our flights, the ones that John and I are on. Did everybody see that? I guess some people didn't see it, but it's in the email. So if you did not get the, how did you, but you knew about this meeting from John then, right? Whatever. So we have to make sure that we have, if you did not get this email that just went out, we need to make sure that it's not getting sent to junk, and we'll have to make sure, because we sent out an email with this information, with our flight information on it. And so I will repeat it though, because I want to make sure everybody knows, John and I are on the same flights going there, outbound and return. We're flying outbound on El Al flight number 6. It leaves on the 6th from LA and returns, it arrives there on the 7th. Interestingly, it leaves at 2 p.m. on the 6th, and it gets in at 2 p.m. on the 7th. Why is that? Because it's a 13-hour flight, 14-hour flight with a 10-hour time difference. So it's real simple if you're taking a direct flight, that it is 24 hours basically from the West Coast to there. On the way back, we're flying flight number 5, and we were flying back on, it actually leaves at 12:45 a.m. It's real important for people to understand this, that when we fly out of Israel, whether we're leaving, not going to Jordan, or if you are going to Jordan, to make sure that you get a late night flight, at least after 10 p.m., preferably even later. We are leaving at 12:45 a.m. Technically, it's the next day on the 20th, and we're returning back. We get back at 6 in the morning the same day. You get back your time. So on the way back, it's only like a 5-hour flight. So that's a it's a great flight if you can get it back. And now all people have asked about the quality of the flight. It's a very good flight. It's a very comfortable flight. It's a good flight because it's a direct flight. You don't have to worry about transfers. I said this before and I'll say it again. Right now, if you can minimize the amount of changes, layovers, especially do not book a flight from 2 different airlines right now. Do not book a flight that's not code shared between 2 different airlines. Book it from the same airline, because the airlines have no responsibility if you miss a connection for whatever reason for them to give you a flight. They should give you the next flight, but they may not. So do not do that. Do not save money by booking it from 2 different airlines. So if you're going to change planes in New York, or if you want to change planes in London, make sure that it's the same airline, or at least code shared. You booked it from the same airline. Because if you book American Airlines and they're flying with El Al, they'll honor it if you booked it with them. But do not book a Southwest flight to one place and then get on an El Al flight or Lufthansa flight or whatever. Do not do that right now, because there are too many delays. There's too many cancellations right now, and the airlines do not care whether or not the other airline screwed up. So I can't stress that enough. You have total freedom with booking. That's why we don't book your flights, because some people use miles, some people use points, some people use the only airline that they ever fly. That's all great. Just make sure, just don't do that to yourself. I mean, you have freedom to do whatever you want, but I'm recommending highly, do not do that. Do not save $100 by booking it from 2 different airlines, going to hacker fare or whatever they call it on kayak. I've done it before. I'm just telling you, don't do it. And I got caught in South Africa once because I booked 2 good airlines. I had British Airways and Virgin. They were good airlines. They did not care that one of them got delayed. I had to spend 3 extra days in Johannesburg, which is not a place that you really want to spend one night in, let alone 3. And I spent 3 nights there because they didn't care. And that was 6 years ago. So let alone 5 years ago, let alone what they're doing now, where it's even worse. So please, I'm begging you, don't make that mistake. Even with well-regarded airlines, they don't care. So book it from the same airline or book it with an airline that code shares where you just booked it and it says, oh, this is Iberia runs this or American runs this on behalf of us. United runs this on behalf of us. That's fine. But make sure that they will respect the booking that you have in case of a delay. Any other questions about flights? That's real important. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me or email me before you make your booking. If you're concerned about the flight, whether it gets in at the right time, don't hesitate to call. It's much easier to call me and say, hey, I got a question than to have to rebook or call back and call the airlines. Just sit on hold for 3 hours. So just take a moment, call me, and I'll help you. I've done it many times. I've flown probably every airline possible to Israel, including this last time Turkish Air, which I never flown before, and they were great. They were fine. I was very hesitant to fly them, but it was fine. Well, any questions? Any more questions? It's okay. If you think of more questions,
I actually have a question.
email me or call me. Shai.
Can people pay the balance by bank wiring instead of check or credit card?
No, that's okay. They're going to be paying you direct.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Can they do it by transferring funds from bank to bank instead?
It's okay. I mean, I don't mind. Like I already told you, I know he's trying to help me, but it doesn't matter. I know everybody uses credit cards. And by the way, Shai, I want them to use credit cards because God forbid if you have a problem, call your credit card company. It's much easier. I'm just saying. The credit card companies in here in America are usually very good at handling problems with the credit card. So please, yeah, it's nice if you pay by check or if you wire, it saves us percentages, but it's much more important for you to have confidence in your booking and in your, God forbid you have a problem, especially nowadays. I would have said 5 years ago, yeah, it really is better if you pay by check or you do a transfer, but it's too, like I said, I don't mind. It's okay. But yes, technically speaking, Shai is 100% correct. Anybody else? Any questions? But we do want to make it simple for everybody. Yes.
Roommate. If
Yes.
you're traveling single and you want a roommate.
Yes, that was in the email too. Did you see it? If you
My
want,
daughter did.
if you want-
I'm talking to my.
if you want to share and you want to share, that was one of the things you have to email me. If you want to share and you don't want to pay the single supplement, please let me know. We do have a couple of people, Reverend John knows this too, right? We have a couple of people that are looking for,
Okay.
if you want to not pay that single supplement, let me know and let me see if we can do that. We've done it in the past. We did it. We've told people we're doing it. We actually are doing it on this trip already. But if you want to and you haven't done it yet, let us know. But you got to let us know soon. And that is one of the reasons why we've had a little flexibility with like having 1 or 2 people, whether it's 2 people or 3 people, because some of them are going to share a room. Problem is the bus is the bus. And we are not taking more than 45 people on a bus, 46 people.
And no pressure at all, but as I talked to Mark today, there's only 2 seats left. So you probably want to let Mark know.
Yeah. And this is really, technically speaking, we would have had none if we didn't have 1 cancellation. So we were really amazed at how everybody responded and everybody took care of already, and they got their deposits in and it's all done. We're not like, now we can just work on planning the trip. We're not trying to get more people on the trip. We're not soliciting people. We're not advertising it. I'm taking a trip in June. So if you can't go on this trip, we're gonna go in June, but it will not be with Reverend John, unless he wants to come in June. I don't mind. But I know his wife's not gonna let him go twice a year to Israel. I'm hoping he'll do it again. I'm sure he'll have a great time, and this is not the last time we'll do it. But I want him to be the spokesperson for the United Methodist Church to be our official minister for trips to Israel. I'm not kidding. I think he'd be great. So
Yeah.
anything else? We'll wrap it up then. For
Great.
any more questions, but
Thank you
please
guys for coming.
please don't hesitate to call or email me.
How do you spell Shai's name?
SHAI.
Thank you.
And like he says, his joke is, "My name is Shai,"
I'm not shy guy.
but he's not Shai.
Notice nobody asked you if you were.
Sometimes they do, sometimes then they do, they kind of, they get the point.
Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll post this up right away. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time out. Have a great rest of the day. Have a blessed day, and we'll see everybody soon, I hope.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Rabbi.
Take care.
Bye.
guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.